Okay, so this is day 3 of my 100 days of code challenge, and today I'm going to start this basic CSS by building a cafe menu section from freeCodeCamp's responsive web design certification. So let's begin. Okay, so as you learned in the last few steps of the cat photo app, there is a basic structure needed for starting to start building your web page. Add so add doc type. Okay, this should be all caps. Add doc type HTML tag and an HTML element with lang attribute of en. Okay, so this wants me to add HTML lang is going to be en. I need to close my HTML tag, indent it properly in a sec. Okay, add a head element within the HTML, so you can add a title. Okay, so let's add a head, and also let's add a title element, and the content of this title element is going to be cafe menu. Yeah, the title is one of several elements that provide extra information not visible on the web page, but it is useful for search engines or how the page gets displayed. Inside the head element, nest a meta tag with an attribute named charset set to the value UTF-8 to tell the browser how to encode characters for the page. Note that meta elements are self-closing. Okay, so meta element with an attribute called charset. I don't know if it's pronounced as charset or charset, but character set, that's what it means. To prepare to create some actual content, add a body element. Okay, let's just add a body element below this head. So this slash. Yeah, so this is good. Okay. Let's go to the next challenge. It's time to add some menu content. Add a main element within the existing body element. It will eventually contain pricing information about coffee and desserts offered by the cafe. Okay, so let's get ready to add some content to our web page. So let's add main tag. Yep. Let's go to the next challenge. The name of the cafe is Camper Cafe. Okay, so let's add a name. Camper Cafe, not Vafe. Camper Cafe. Okay. Yeah. Let's go to the next challenge. To let visitors know the cafe was founded in 2020, add a P element. Okay, let's add a P element and then established 2020. Let's close the P. Yeah. There will be two sections on the menu, one for coffees and one for desserts. Add a section element within the main element so you have a place to put all the coffees available. Okay, so inside main element, let's add a new section. This should do it. Yeah. Create a header 2 element s2 and give it the content coffee. Okay, up until now you have been limited regarding the presentation and appearance of the content you create. to start taking control, add a style element within the head element. Yeah, so far we have not used any CSS at all, so now we are going to start using CSS inside this style element. So yeah, you can add style to an element by specifying it in the style element and setting a property for it like this. Yeah, center your h1 element by setting its text align property to value center. Okay, so right now our header is camper cafe, it's aligned to left of the screen. So now what we are going to do is we are going to align this text into the center of the screen. So text align center, and that should move it to the center. Yeah, in the previous step you used the type selector to style the h1 element, center the h2 and p elements by adding a new type selector for each one to the existing style element. Okay, it looks like it wants me to center the h2. Yeah, h2 text align center. Yeah, and I could have just done h1 comma h2 comma p, and then it would align everything to the center, but I think this is not going to let me pass this test. If I check my code, it's going to fail. Yeah, now you should not change the existing h1 selector. Okay, so I think what it wants me to do is have separate styles for each of the elements. So h1 has its own styles, h2 has its own styles, and then p has its own styles. So if I do this, then effectively it's going to do the same thing. If it does not matter if we put comma and then put add more selectors in here, or we can just do it like this, like for each individual element we can write one selector for each one and then put the styles like this. So now this should pass. Yeah, you now have 3 type selectors with the exact same styling. Yeah, you can add the same group. Okay, so that's what I was talking about. Now it wants me to do that. So that's what I was talking about. So h1, h2 and p, if I do this, I can basically remove this because all of the styles, all of the elements were styled as text align center and it was common, so I just separated those element names with comma and then styled them all together here. So now everything is styled in the aligned in the middle of the screen. Yeah, okay, you have styled 3 elements by writing CSS inside the style tags. This works, but since there will be many more styles, it's best to pull all the styles in a separate file and link to it. Okay, we have created a separate styles.css file for you and switched the editor view to that file. Okay, so we are right now in this styles.css file. So this is index.html and then this is styles.css. Okay, start by rewriting the styles you have created into styles.css file. Make sure to exclude the opening and closing styles tag. Okay, so I can basically move this content, anything that was previously inside this style tags, now I can move it inside styles.css file. So I'm just going to copy and paste it here. Let's check my code. Yeah, now that you have the CSS in styles.css, yeah, we just changed it, and what we did was we just copied all this content into a styles.css file. once it is removed, the text was centered will shift back to the left. Okay, so if I'm going to remove this style tag right now, then all of the text is going to move back here, even though I do have even though I do have these styles inside this styles.css file. It is still rendering these content on the left side, and the reason is we have not linked these styles to this index.html file yet. So that okay, so on the next challenge I think we are going to link it. Yeah, so now you need to link the styles.css file so the styles will be applied again. Next, a self-closing link element. So self-closing link element will look something like this. Then give it href attribute and then the value of styles.css. Then it's going to so now this styles.css file is linked with this index.html file, and that's why our content has moved to the middle again. So if I were to go on here in the styles.css, and if I were to change this to right, then it would move to right side, or left, then it moves to left side, center, then it moves to center. Let's close this editor. Okay, sorry, your code does not pass, keep trying. Okay, so we also need to have this whenever we are linking a style sheet, then we also need to have this rel is equals to style sheet. Rel is equals to style sheet attribute here. So now this is passed, but I don't know what significance does it have, because even without this rel is equals to style sheet, the CSS was working, the styles were working. So let's see. Why do we need rel is equals to style sheet attribute? Okay, the link HTML element specifies relationships between the current document and an external resource. So the current document in our case is index.html file, and external resource is this styles.css. This element is most commonly used to link to style sheets, but is also used to establish site icons. Okay, both favicon was okay, so this favicon is this icon is called favicon, and icons for the home screen and apps on mobile devices, among other things. Okay, this simple example provides the path to the style sheet inside href attribute and a rel attribute with a value of style sheet. The rel stands for relationship. Okay, so it stands for relationship and is one of the key features of the link element. The value denotes how the item being linked is related to the containing. Okay, so this rel attribute is for defining the relation between the current document and the external resource that's being linked into the current document. And in our case, the external document that's being linked is styles.css, which is a style sheet document. So that's what this rel attribute is describing here. Okay, good to know. For the styling of the page to look similar on mobile as it does on desktop or laptop, you need to add meta element with a special content attribute. Okay, add this thing to let's add this to our head, inside our head element. I have never researched what these attributes mean, so I don't know. I have always include these meta tags inside any HTML file that I'm writing, but that's about it. I don't know why it's included. What significance does it have? It says the for the styling of the page to look similar on mobile as it does on desktop or laptop. Okay, but how does it work? I don't know, but I think this should pass the test. Okay, let's go. The text is centered again, so the link to the CSS file is working. Add another style to the file that changes the background color property to brown for the body element. Okay, so let's go on to our style.css. Oh, we are already here, so let's add a style. Let's add a selector for body. So this is a selector for body. Now we want to add background color property, and the background color property is going to be brown. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so the brown background makes it hard to read. Yeah, it does. Okay, since the body's element background color to burly wood. Okay, so now I need to change this to burly wood. Okay, that's better. The div element is used mainly for design layout purposes, unlike the other content elements you have used so far. Add a div element inside the body element and then move all the other elements inside the new div. Okay, so let's add a div element. Div and move all the other elements. Okay, should I move including the main? Let's see. Yeah, inside the opening div tag, add the id attribute with a value of. Okay, so let's give this div an id of menu. Okay, yeah, so this is good. The goal now is to make the div not take up the entire width of the page. The CSS width property is perfect for this. Okay, so we are going to give this div a width. You can use the ID selector to target a specific element with an ID attribute. An ID selector is defined by placing the hash symbol directly in front of the element's ID value. Okay, so use hash menu selector and then give it a width of 300 pixels. Okay, so now let's go to our style sheet, and this is hash menu selector, which selects the div, and now we are going to give 300 pixel width for this thing. Okay, there's our div. Let's check. Yeah, so let's go to the next challenge. Okay, so we are learning about commenting. In your style sheet, comment out the line containing the background color property. Okay, so let's just comment this line out by doing this. So now this background color property is not applied because this is commented out from here. Now use the existing menu selector to set the background color. Okay, so we commented out the background color of body. So now what we are going to do is background color burly wood, and now the div has a background of burly wood. Now it's easy to see that the text is centered inside the menu element. Currently the width of the menu element is specified in pixels. Change the width into percentage. Okay, let's go on and change the width to 80%. Okay, next you want to center the menu horizontally. Okay, so we want to center the entire menu div horizontally. For that, what we need to do is set the left margin to auto and right margin to auto. Yeah, think of the margin is invisible space around an element. Using these two margin properties, center the menu element within the body element. Okay. So far you have been using type and ID selectors, okay, to style elements. However, it is more common to use a different selector to style your element. A class selector is defined by a name with a dot directly in front of it. Okay, so let's change this ID selector to class selector. So I can remove hash and put a dot in front of the class name, and then it will select the element with which includes the class name menu in it. So check my code. Yeah, to apply the classes styling to the div element. Yeah, so now the styling is gone because I changed the selector, and this div, it used to have, it still has the ID attribute, but it does not have this class attribute. So we need to add this class attribute for those styles to be applied here. Yeah, so now it will have this background. Okay, so it wants me to remove the ID. Okay, yeah. Since the cafe's main product for sale is coffee, you could use an image of coffee beans for the background of the image. Delete the comment and its contents inside the body type selector. Now add a background image property and set its value to this. Okay, so it wants me to remove this comment and add a background image, and it will have a value of this. Let's just copy this and paste. No. Copy and paste. Yeah, so we have the coffee beans there. It's looking good. Okay, time to start adding some menu items. Add an empty article element under the coffee heading. It will contain a flavor and price of each coffee you currently offer. Okay, so under the coffee heading, let's include an article element. Need to have a slash there. Let's go to the next challenge. Article elements commonly contain multiple elements that have related information. In this case, it will contain a coffee flavor and a price for that flavor. Nest two P elements inside your article, and the first one's text should be French vanilla and the second's text should be 3.00. Okay, so P French vanilla slash P, and then another P tag, and it's going to be 3.00. Okay, yeah, so we have our first menu item there. Starting below the existing coffee price pair, add the following coffee and prices using article elements with two nested p elements inside each. As before, the first p elements text should contain the coffee flavor and the second should contain the price. Okay, so let's just copy this. Actually copy this, let's add another coffee flavor, and this is called caramel macchiato. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and this is going to be 3.75. Then pumpkin spice, then I'm going to copy this article again, okay, this is going to be pumpkin spice, and the price is going to be 3.50. And there is going to be this hazelnut, which is going to cost hazelnut, which is going to cost 4 euros or dollar, I don't know. Then there is going to be mocha, which is going to cost 4.50. Okay, oh, there's something wrong in there. Let's see. Yeah, let's check my code. Right like the wind. Okay, let's go to the next challenge. The flavors and prices are currently stacked on top of each other. Yeah, so we have the French vanilla here, and then the price for French vanilla is here. So it would be nice if the flavor was on the left and the price was on the right. Okay, it would be nice. So add a class name flavor to French vanilla p element. Okay, let's see. Class is going to be flavor. Okay, using your new flavor class as a selector, set the text align properties value to left. Okay, so we are going to align flavor to left. Align left, and it has moved here. Now you want to align the price to the right. So let's add a class called price, and maybe in the next we are going to style dot price. So price was the class name, and then dot was for creating this selector, this class selector. So text align to right. Yeah, but they are on different lines. So let's see how we are going to style them so that they appear on the same line. This is kind of what you want. Yeah, kind of. But now it would be nice if the flavor and price were on the same line. Okay, p elements are block level elements, so they take up the entire width of their parent element. To get them on the same line, you need to apply some styling into the p elements so they behave more like inline elements. To do that, start by adding a class attribute with the value item to the first article element under the coffee heading. Okay, so let's go on and add a class name called item on our first article element, and then in the next step what we are going to do is do select the item by using class selector dot and the class name, so dot item. Then if I put a space and then if I write p in there, what it's going to select is the p tag inside this, which is nested inside the element that has a class name of item. In our case it's going to be the p tags here. Okay, so what we need to change is change the display property to inline block. Okay, so now they are on the same line, but there is no spacing in between them, but they are on the same line. So if I were to just for fun, let's add a border there on pixel solid black. Yeah, so as we can see here, this item and then space and then p is selecting both the elements inside this item class. So in our HTML, what we have done is we have article with a class of item, and then inside that article we have two p tags, and for selecting both of those p tags, what we are doing is selecting the item, this article first with the class of item, and then giving it a space, and then selecting the p tags inside this item class. That's closer, but the price didn't stay over on the right. Okay, this is because inline block elements only take up the width of their content. Yeah, so both of these p elements, they take up the width of their content, so only they span only as long as their content spans. So to spread them out, add a width property to the flavor and price class selectors that have a value of 50%. Okay, so what we want to do is we want the French vanilla to take half the width, and then the price to take another half. So width is going to be 50%. Yeah, then it pushes. Then width is going to be 50%. That have a value of 50% each. Okay, let's go on and check. Yeah, but now this is going into the next line. So well, that did not work. Yeah, it didn't. Styling the p element as inline block and placing them on separate lines in the code creates an extra space to the right of the first p element, causing the second one to shift to the next line. Okay, actually I also don't know what happened there. So let's read this again. Styling the p elements is inline block, yeah, and placing them on separate lines in the code creates an extra space to the right of the first p element, causing the second one to shift to the next line. One way to fix this is, okay, so I have to make the width 49% for each class, then it's going to work. 49. Yeah, okay. That work, but there is still a little space on the right of the page. Yeah, because we just used 49%, so 98% of the width of the parent. You could keep trying various percentages for the widths. Instead, use the backspace key on your keyboard to move the p element with the class price next to the p element with the class flavor so that they are on the same line. Okay. Okay, is it suggesting me to do this? Let's see. Okay, so while I was writing my HTML, these p tags, I had included a new line in between the p tags. Maybe that's why it was. Okay, now go ahead and set, let's see, let's go ahead and set 50%. Check your code, and it remains on the same line. Okay, so that, yeah, so if I were to write these p tags on separate lines, then this is not going to work. So this moves to the next line. Maybe it's because of the new line in here. But if I remove this new line and then place the flavor and price side by side without any space in between them, then this 50% width works. I didn't know that. Okay, let's go to the next challenge. Now that you know it works, you can change the remaining article and p elements to match the first set. Start by adding the class item to other articles. Okay, so let's go on and add class is equals to, what is it, item, yeah. Okay, also here and also here, and there is one more. Now position other p elements to be on the same line with no space between them. Okay, let's do this and this and this. Yeah, so there is no space in between them. Now let's add classes. Class flavor, and another class is price, like this here. Yeah, so now they all are styled similarly. If you make the width of the page preview smaller, you will notice at some point some of the text on the left starts wrapping around to the next line. This is because the width of the p elements on the left side can only take up to 50% of the space. Since you know the prices on the right have significantly fewer characters, change the flavor class width value to be 75 and the price class width to be 25. Okay, so if I were to keep on resizing this window, let's see. Where's the preview? Oh, preview is here. Keep on resizing. Yeah, then it starts going into next line after a certain point. Yeah. So what we want is to take this for this p element that contains the flavor name to take up to 75% of the parent's width, and the price will take only 25% of the parent's width. So that's what we want. Yeah, you will come back to styling the menu in a few steps, but for now go ahead and add a second section below the first for displaying the desserts offered by the cafe. Okay, let's go on and add a section in here, and inside this section we are going to have the desserts. Okay, you should have an opening section tag. Obviously I do have opening section tag, but I didn't have closing section tag. Add an h2 element in the new section and give it the text desserts. Okay, h2, yeah. Add an empty article and give it a class name item. Okay, this is passing. Nest two p elements inside your article. The first one text should be donut, so we are selling donuts. Do we need to have a class name? No. And the second text, let's go on and add a second, which is going to have a text of 1.50. Yeah, and this is already styled as this p element inside the item, so even though we are rendering p elements, it is not taking the full width, and it's not going into the next line. It is displayed as inline block element. It's only taking the width of this donut and 1.50. so yeah, so let's check our code. For the two p elements you just added, add dessert is the value of the first p elements class attribute and the value price. Okay, so it's not going to be flavor, but it's going to be dessert and price. Okay, yeah, since this p has a class of price, now this is taking 25% of the width. Let's check our code. Yeah, something does not look right. You added the correct class attribute value to the p element, but you have not defined a selector for it. Okay, the CSS rule for flavor class already sets the properties you want. Add the dessert class as an additional selector. Okay, let's just put a comma in there. Let's put a comma and dot dessert. Now this is going to style same as the flavor. Below the dessert you just add the rest of the desserts and prices. Okay, let's add the rest of the desserts and prices. I'm just going to copy this, paste it here. This is going to be okay. Let's paste this again for this cheesecake and cinnamon roll. Okay, so this is going to be cherry pie. This is going to be cheesecake, and this is going to be cinnamon roll. The price is going to be 2.75. here the price is going to 3.0 and 2.50. Yeah, so we have our desserts in here. Let's check. You can give your menu some space between the content and the sides with various padding properties. Okay, give the menu class a padding left and padding right. Okay, so 20 pixels left padding, which adds some space in here, and padding right is going to be 20 pixels, so it's going to, yep, that looks better. Okay, now try to add the same 20 pixels on top and bottom. Okay, so padding top 20 pixels, padding bottom 20 pixels. Yeah, since all four sides of the menu have same internal spacing, go ahead and delete the four properties and use a single padding property. Okay, so now what I can do is just add this padding 20 pixels, and it's going to function the same as adding individual paddings for each sides. The current width of the menu will always take up to 80% of the body elements width. On a very wide screen, the coffee and dessert appear far apart from their prices. Yeah, so if I were to increase the size of this window, yeah, then they would be very far apart from each other. So let's add a max width property to this menu element. Max width, which is going to be 500 pixels. Yeah, so now it does not matter how large the screen size is, it's always going to take up to 500 pixels and not more. You can change the font family of text to make it look different from the default font of your browser. Each browser has some common fonts available to it. Change all the text in your body by adding font family property with the value of sans serif. This is a fairly common font that is very readable. Okay, so right now we are using serif font, but if I go on and do this sans serif, then this is going to change the font type, and this looks much better. It is a bit boring for all the text to have the same font family. Okay, and make just h1 and h2 elements different using a different selector. Style both the h1 and h2 elements so that only these elements text use impact font. Okay, so what we can do is use the element type as the selector, and let's put a comma in between them. So we are going to style h1 and h2 type elements, and we are going to change the font family of those elements, and we are going to set it to impact. Okay, so now the font for h1 and h2 elements, it is impact, and the font family for the rest of our page is sans serif. You can add a fallback value. Okay, so fallback value is this. So we can separate the font names by comma, and then if the first font is not found, or if it could not be loaded for some reason, then the second font is going to be applied. And if I would have another font, for example Arial, then if in case of both of these font family if they fail to load, then this font would be applied. But let's go on. Yeah. Make the EST 2020 text italicized by creating an established class selector and giving it the font family property with the value italic. Okay, so first we need to create a class selector, so established, and we need to give font style to italic. Let's check. Yeah, but it is not changed yet because we have not applied this class name to this inside our HTML, so we need to do that. Now apply the established class to the EST 2020 text. Okay, so we are going to add a class attribute, and give it the value established. Okay, now it is italicized. The typography of heading elements h1, h2 is set by default values of users' browsers. Add two new type selectors. Use the font size property for both, but use the value 40 pixels for h1 and 30 pixels for h2. Okay, so now what we are going to do is change the size of the text of these two or these three text content. Let's go on and add h1, h2. Oh, sorry, I have to just select h1 because both of them will have different font size, so I cannot use the comma here. So h1 is 40 pixels. Now this text has grown to 40 pixels, and h2 is going to be font size 30 pixels. Yeah, so this also enlarges the size of these h2 elements. Add a footer element below the main element where you can add some additional information. Okay, so below the main, what we are going to do is footer. Let's go to next. Inside the footer, add a P element, then nest an anchor element in the P that links to freeCodeCamp.org and has the text visit our website. Okay, so let's add a P element. Then inside this P element, what we are going to do is add an anchor tag which is going to contain the text visit our website, and the link is going to point to this address. Yeah, now let's add another P element and give it the text 123 freeCodeCamp drive. Okay, so there is going to be another P element with the text 123 freeCodeCamp drive. Yeah, you can use HR element to display a divider. Okay, so first add an HR element between P element with class name established and section. Okay, so let's divide this section. So HR is also self-closing, so I can just do this. Okay, the default properties of an HR element will make it appear as a thin light gray line. You can change the height of the line by specifying the value for the height property, since the height of the HR element to be 3 pixels. Okay, I didn't know that we can change the value of HR. Is it default properties? Okay, it appears a thin gray line. You can change that. So if I were to, okay, so now I can use CSS to style this, and let's put height to 3 pixels, and okay, and it does that. So here we have 3 pixels. Let's do this. Yeah, okay. Change the background color of the HR to be brown. Okay, so let's style this more. Background color to be brown. Background color. So it's background color, not background color. Yeah, so that's. Notice the gray color along the edges of the line. Yeah, those edges are known as borders. Okay, each side of an element can have a different color, or they can all be same. Make all the edges of HR element the same color as the background. Okay, so let's just give it the same border color as its background. Let's just go on and border color. Yeah, so now everything is gray, brown, sorry. Notice how the thickness of the line looks bigger. The default value of a property named border width is 1 pixels for all edges. So by all edges it means the top, bottom, right and left. Okay. By changing the border to the same border as the background, the total height of the line is 5 pixels, because the actual HR element itself has the height of 3 pixels, and then the top border has 1 pixel's height and the bottom border has 1 pixel, so it's total 5 pixels. Change the height property to 2 pixels, so the total is going to be 4. Okay, did it change? Let's see. 22, yeah, 3, 2, yeah, so it changed. Go ahead and add another HR element between the main and the footer. Okay, so right here what we are going to do is add another divider. Okay, so visit our website 123 freeCodeCamp. Okay, we're about 78% complete. To create a little more room around the menu, add 20 pixels of space on the inside of the body element by using padding property. Okay, so if we do this, then the body element will have the padding of 20 pixels. Focusing on the menu, items and prices, there is a fairly large gap between each line. Yes, the items and prices, does it mean this? Use the existing selector that targets all the P elements nested in elements with class named item, and set their top and bottom margin to be 5 pixels. Okay, so this is the selector that will select all the P elements that are nested in elements with class named item. So this is the selector that we are talking about. So set their top and bottom margin. Margin top is going to be 5 pixels. Margin bottom is going to be 5 pixels. Yeah, so now that is denser than it was before. And looks better. Let's go to the next exercise. Using the same style selector in the previous step, make the font size of the items and prices larger by using value of 18 pixels. So all the fonts inside this item nested inside this element that has the item class, we are going to increase the font size to 18 pixels. Yeah, so this is big. So for example, if I do 28, then this text would look a lot bigger. So let's go back to 18 and let's submit. Changing the margin bottom to 5 pixels looks great. However, now the space between the cinnamon roll menu item and the second HR element does not match the space between the top HR element and coffee heading. So it's talking about the space between here and here. Add some more space by creating a class named bottom line using 25 pixels for margin top. Okay, let's add bottom line class, and then let's give it a margin top of 25 pixels. Okay, so we have not applied this class to any element, so it's not going to change how our website is going to look or this page is going to look. But now we are going to apply it to this HR element. Class is going to be bottom line, and then it will move this divider all 25 pixels below the cinnamon roll. Now next you are going to be styling the footer element. To keep the CSS organized, add a comment footer is the at the end of styles.css with the text footer. Okay, let's add a comment with text of footer. Moving down to the footer element, make all the text have a value of 14 pixels. Okay, so footer element should have a font size of 14 pixels. Yeah. The default color of a link that has not yet been clicked on it's typically blue. The default color of a link that has already been visited from a page is typically purple. To make the footer links the same color regardless of if a link has been visited, use a type selector. For the anchor element, use the value black for color property. Okay, so we are going to style the anchor tags and give them a color property to be black. Yeah, and this is always going to be rendered as a black. %, complete. Okay. You change properties of a link when the link has actually been visited by using a pseudo selector. Okay, so now we are going to style a link differently if the link has already been visited, and we are going to use the pseudo selector called visited. So if a link has already been visited, then we are going to give it a color of gray. Yeah, so we have already clicked this link, so that's why it's being rendered as gray link. Usage properties of a link when the mouse hovers over them by using a pseudo selector hover. Okay, so when somebody hovers over the link, it should change its color to brown. Okay, visit our website. So color is going to be brown. Now if I go on and hover, so now when I move my mouse pointer mouse pointer mouse pointer over this visit our website text, then it changes the color to brown, and when the pointer leaves, then it changes its color back to gray because it's a visited link. You change properties of a link when the link is actually being clicked by using a pseudo selector that looks like a.active. Okay, since the color of the footer, so when this is being clicked on, then what we need to do is render it as a white link. Okay, so if I click here, so this is now being clicked on and the color is white. If I click here, yeah, so it's gray. If I hover, it changes to brown. If I click on it, it changes to white. To keep with the same color theme you have already been using, black and brown, change the color for when the link is visited to black. Okay, so when the link is visited, we change its color to black, and brown for when the link is actually being clicked. So this. The menu text has a different space from the top than the addresses space at the bottom of the menu. This is due to the browser having some default top margin for H1 element. Change the top margin of the H1 element to 0 to remove all the top margin. Okay, so let's just not remove margin. Let's just do margin 0, and then it removes the margin here. To remove some of the vertical space between the H1 element and the text EST 2020, change the bottom margin to 15 pixels. Margin bottom is going to be 15 pixels, so this reduces the margin for this H1 element. Let's submit this, go to the next one. Now the top stacking looks good. The space below the address at the bottom of the menu is a little bigger than the space at the top of the menu and the H1 element. To decrease the default margin space below the address P element, create a class selector named address and use the value of 5 pixels for the margin bottom property. Okay, top spacing looks good. So by top spacing, I think it means this, the space below the address at the bottom. Does it mean this, below the address of the menu is a little bigger than the space at the top of the menu and the H1 element. Okay, to decrease the default margin space below the address P element, create a class selector named, okay, let's create a class selector called address. Margin bottom is going to be 5 pixels. Then what I'm going to do is, on the next challenge, now apply the address class to this. Yeah, the menu looks good. Yeah, it does. But other than the coffee beans background image, it is mainly just text. Under the coffee heading, add an image using the URL give the image an alt value of coffee icon. Okay, so just below here under the coffee heading, let's do image, and the source is going to be this. Oh, okay, so it's a coffee icon, and alt is going to be coffee icon. Let's submit this. Yeah, the image you added is not centered horizontally like the coffee heading above it. Image elements are like inline elements. To make the image behave like heading elements, which are block level, create an image type selector and use the value block for the display property. Use the applicable margin left and margin right to values to center it horizontally. Okay, so let's just go on and select image tag, and then what we are going to do is change how it's displayed. So we are going to change it to display the block element, and margin right is going to be auto, and margin left is going to be auto. So now this should be centered. Yeah, so now this coffee icon moves to the center. So we are 98% done. Add one last image under the deserts. Okay, so let's go on and add another image tag here, source alt by icon. Okay, and yeah, so this image by default it is rendered as a block element, and it's centered horizontally because we have this style in here that selects the image element and then applies these styles to this image element. So let's submit this. It would be nice if the vertical space between the H2 elements and their associated icons was smaller. Okay, so we are talking about this space. The H2 elements have default top and bottom margin space. Yeah, so you could change the bottom margin of the H2 elements to say 0 or another number. There is an easier way. Simply add a negative top margin to the image elements to pull them up from their current positions. Okay, negative values are created using minus in front of the value. To complete this project, go ahead and use a negative top margin of 25% to image selector. Okay, so basically what we are going to do is we are going to apply margin top, and then usually when we are applying a margin top and giving it some value, then what it's going to do is it's going to push the so it's going to push the content down usually. But if I go on and apply the negative margin, if I put minus in here, then it's going to push the content upwards. So it's going to apply negative 25 pixels margins, and now the coffee icon and the desert icon, this pie icon, they are closer to their headings. Yeah, okay, so this is it for day 3.